Hi, I am Allie Camaletti, and you are listening to Snack Leadership. I will be talking about everything leadership, broken down into bite-sized pieces. You will hear what different leadership skills look like in organizations and how they can rise teams up or take them down. I help leaders build resilience and improve performance by bringing awareness to opportunity behaviors in my business. Spark your mindset. I provide leadership and sales coaching, as well as team building and guest speaking. My hope is for you to feel inspiration and to create a spark in your mindset. Hi everyone. Today we are talking about curiosity. Curiosity is the intentional pursuit of understanding. A leader's commitment to asking questions, exploring diverse perspectives, and continuously learning rather than assuming they already have all the answers. It's the mindset that transforms uncertainty into opportunity. I love the topic of curiosity. As I shared with Tinsley, I am a naturally curious person. I feel like that's always been a part of who I am. Will I say that sometimes it might annoy people? Absolutely. Absolutely. I had a younger gentleman who was helping me stain my fence this summer, and I've known him since he was a baby. And so we were talking, and I was asking all these questions. And he's like, "Why do you ask so many questions?" And I'm like, "I'm curious. I want to know, what are your hopes and dreams?" He just turned 18 this year, and I'm so excited for him. And having been in his life for so long, I just want to understand a part of what he hopes for and dreams about. But obviously, he was like, "Lady, come on, you're killing me." So I try to watch my curiosity and be disciplined with it. But at moments when I feel really comfortable in my environment, I just let it go and I don't really judge it and go with it. Now, today I'm going to talk about this article that I found from Forbes, and it was in April 14th that they released it by Diane Hamilton. And they say why emotional intelligence falls short without curiosity and leadership. I was so intrigued by this idea because when I was talking with Tinsley, we hit on emotional intelligence. I mean, I feel like a good leader has both of these skills and they go hand in hand. So they say it's easy to see why emotional intelligence has become a cornerstone of leadership development. Leaders who display self-awareness, empathy, and emotional regulation tend to communicate more effectively and foster trust. But emotional intelligence on its own does not guarantee understanding. It helps you stay calm, manage your reactions, and respond thoughtfully. What it does not do is make you ask better questions. Really, the root of being a good leader, being a good friend, parent, partner, I feel, is asking questions. So asking questions seeks out new perspectives. It recognizes the limits of your own knowledge. That's the role of curiosity. Research shows that people who are naturally curious, especially those who get fully absorbed in learning, and more likely to develop emotional intelligence. The researchers explain that curiosity is what drives people to notice their emotions, make sense of them, and figure out how to respond. Emotional intelligence might help you manage what you feel, but curiosity is what pushes you to explore why you feel it in the first place. And as I'm just reflecting on this article and what they're saying, I think about how my daughter, we were recently doing this neurofeedback, which I won't get into that, but it's a type of therapy. And she was meeting a new therapist. And our second session was yesterday. And the gal said, "You ask such great questions." My daughter is constantly curious. And I am so grateful for that. Yeah, she probably might get it from me, being around me, but either way, that tells me that these are great foundational skills for her. So when curiosity is missing, emotional intelligence stops short of its potential. The most well-meaning leader can still misread a situation or assume they understand someone's experience simply because they're tuned into emotions. Without curiosity, leaders may respond gracefully to what they perceive, but they may never discover what actually matters. And I'm thinking about a recent coaching I had with a gentleman, and we were able to pinpoint that he struggles with trust. And so as we were digging in, he shared that in high school, he had a teacher that wrote on the chalkboard to basically never trust. That wasn't the exact message, but in the end, that's how he took it. And I was like, wow, for at such a young age to be influenced by that idea. And I come from Diane Crampton's belief of we give trust to earn trust first, right? It's not something that we wait and it builds. Now, Brene Brown recently talked differently about this and shared her marble experiment as far as, each time trust is shown with somebody, it's a marble in the jar. And how big is the jar full of marbles is how much you share with them and go deep with them, which is, I like the concept, I do, but I also want to lead with trust first. So, curiosity is what makes emotional intelligence useful in dynamic, complex situations. It shifts leadership from knowing to exploring. A curious leader interprets emotional cues as well as asks about them. They want to understand the reason behind disengagement, resistance, or enthusiasm. They do not settle for surface impressions. And that's where I went with this gentleman I was coaching. I said, tell me more. What did trust look like in your childhood, in your environment that you were raised in? And I encouraged him to really look at that deeply to see if there was other messaging that was happening that has now influenced where he is at today and why we're seeing, oh, trust is a big thing, especially as a leader. In emotionally charged environments, curiosity is what prevents leaders from jumping to conclusions, right? For me, I could just assume that it was how he was raised, that's why he struggles with trust. I could assume that he had something happen in a relationship, and that's why he struggles with trust. But I want to understand it more. I want to ask those questions and dig in deep. So curiosity slows the impulse to interpret and replace it with inquiry. So inclusive leadership has been shown to foster environments where employees feel valued and heard, which can enhance psychological safety. When employees believe their leaders are genuinely curious about their views, they are more likely to speak up, share dissenting opinions, and participate in problem solving. I can vouch for this. When I felt like I was in a safe place, I was more apt to speak up. But if I was shut down a lot, which I have been in different environments, I was tight-lipped. I was not getting curious and asking questions and offering solutions and problem solving. That matters because many leaders assume that being approachable is enough. They believe that emotional intelligence demonstrates through listening, patience, and empathy naturally builds safety. But listening without follow-up questions can feel passive. It can feel like the leader is collecting input but not engaging with it. Curiosity turns passive listening into active discovery. It makes the difference between hearing and understanding. Now, when I work with clients and I'm coaching, let's say a middle manager, I always do a follow-up to who they report to so that that person can have a pulse on what we're talking about and support them. And what I share with that leader is go talk with them. Say, hey, I noticed you're working on this with Allie. Like, how is that going? Has anything come up for you recently? that will deepen their relationship if they can get curious. Don't just assume you know everything from my follow-up and so you don't need to ask anything. No. Create this partnership with me as we grow this person into that succession plan you're looking for. Curiosity encourages the core of emotional intelligence, self-awareness, and growth. Self-awareness is one of the core dimensions of emotional intelligence. It's often defined as the ability to recognize your own emotions and how they affect your behavior. But real self-awareness requires more than observation. It requires exploration. Curious leaders reflect not just on what they feel, but on why they feel it. They look at their assumptions, challenge their instincts, and stay open to feedback that might contradict their self-image. Absolutely. That is really important. I know I shared on one of my podcasts that I was like, part of me doesn't care what people think anymore. And there's a piece of, no, I'm just so comfortable being who I am that I'm not trying to fit in anymore, is what it is. Now, if somebody I'm getting feels a certain way about me, I want to explore that. Like, I want to understand, what do you think happened to make you feel that way? And really dig deeper. So the mindset is particularly important when dealing with feedback from others. Many leaders are trained to receive feedback professionally, but not all are prepared to examine it deeply. Curiosity helps leaders resist the urge to defend, explain, or dismiss what they hear. Instead, they ask follow-up questions, consider patterns, and look for opportunities to grow. It becomes less about how feedback makes them feel and more about what it can teach them. Now, I ask for feedback often. I ask for it individually after working with a specific leader for a year or more. I ask it in the groups that I offer. I ask feedback because I care about what people think, and I always want to be growing and learning. Now, curiosity adds to emotional intelligence by reducing bias and improves decision making. So another important benefit is its ability to reduce cognitive bias. Emotionally intelligent leaders are often good at reading the room, but those interpretations are still shaped by their own beliefs and past experiences. Without curiosity, those impressions can go unchecked. A leader might assume a team member is resistant to change when in reality, that person simply lacks clarity about the decision being made. Curious leaders pause before they act. They ask whether their assumptions are valid. Often I'll say, so if I'm understanding correctly, and they can come back and say, actually, this is what I meant. You can use that technique in anything you do, even navigating people that are upset. It really helps people feel like they're being heard. Even if it's incorrect, then they can correct you. Leaders seek multiple perspectives. They are more likely to consider alternative explanations before forming conclusions. This leads to more inclusive decisions and avoids the common trap of using emotional intelligence to validate a narrative that feels familiar but might be incomplete. Now, in a recent podcast, one of the questions that I was asked before we met was, when you're looking to make a change, how do you navigate that? And I said, I seek counsel. I have other entrepreneurs and mentors and people I respect that I ask them, see what they think. Does that mean whatever they think, I'm going to decide and move that direction? No, not at all. It's me collecting data. I want to understand everybody's different perception and perspective. Curiosity brings meaning to emotional intelligence, specifically empathy, right? Empathy is often seen as the emotional centerpiece of leadership, but empathy without curiosity can lead to misalignment. Leaders may project their own feelings onto others rather than seeking to understand what someone else is experiencing. Yes, they may believe they're being supportive when in fact they are applying a one-size-fits-all solution. I think about grief. I was talking with somebody recently about it. I've had a lot of people pass in my life in all different forms and ways throughout my life. And I can't expect that they are going through exactly what I went through at any point, and I don't want to. And one of the things I shared with a person recently is I just said, don't judge your grief. You do whatever you need to do and whatever that looks like. And your team members, they're all grieving differently. You might grieve one way. Maybe you don't want to talk about it. Don't think that they don't want to talk about that. Ask, check in with them, because you may have a team that has experienced grief right now with the loss of a team member, and you try to do a cookie cutter approach. It won't work. Everybody's different. So ask, what can I do to support you? What do you think you need during this time? Some people are going to head in the sand. I'm fine. I don't need anything. Others are going to be like, I might need a personal day here and there. I just don't know when it's going to come up for me. Valid. Yeah, you can't put a timeline on grief. True empathy starts with curiosity. It involves asking what someone is feeling, not assuming you already know. It means recognizing that two people can have completely different responses to the same event. Exactly. Now, curiosity enhances emotional intelligence, social skills, and collaboration. So, social skills is another domain for emotional intelligence. It includes communication, relationship building, and the ability to influence others constructively. While social skills can help leaders maintain harmony, curiosity pushes collaboration forward. It leads to more dynamic conversations, better brainstorming, and more inclusive dialogue. When a leader is curious, they ask questions in meetings that invite new perspectives. They facilitate discussions where quieter voices feel safe to speak. They show interest in how different team members think and why. This fosters not only stronger relationships, but also more creativity. The team is not just aligned, they're engaged. I think of when Tinsley talked about how he has handled screen time with his children, and how after he would ask them what they noticed about themselves. How beautiful is that? Yeah, right away. Yesterday with my daughter, we had that discussion of me asking, so talk to me, do you notice anything after you have a lot of screen time? As I shared, I kind of limited the screen time. She doesn't always get that in other environments. And so I wanted her perspective on it, and I wanted her to think about it. Curiosity helps emotional intelligence adapt to complexity. In today's fast-changing business environment, emotional intelligence is necessary, but it is no longer sufficient. Leaders must navigate diverse teams, shifting technologies, and global uncertainties, right? We are in it. The ability to manage emotions and relationships, it's foundational. But the ability to adapt, learn, and question is what drives evolution. It's what makes emotional intelligence flexible. It helps leaders stay effective when circumstances change, when feedback's unexpected, or when established norms no longer apply. It allows them to lead with humility and stay open to new ways of thinking. In a world where uncertainty is constant, curiosity becomes the key to staying relevant. So, practical ways to combine curiosity with emotional intelligence. Leaders who want to bring more curiosity into their emotional intelligence can be with a few shifts in mindsets and habit. Start meetings by asking questions you don't already know the answers to. When giving feedback, include questions like, how did that feel to you? Or what would have made this easier? During one-on-ones, ask, what's something you're thinking about that we haven't discussed yet? Replace statements of reassurance with invitations to share more. Stay quiet a moment longer than feels comfortable to create space for the other person to fill it. These small behaviors build a pattern. They signal to others that you are genuinely interested in their experience and their insight. Now, when you're practicing this, you really want to pay attention after asking the question, right? Because often when we ask a question, our minds can wander. Stay focused. This will cultivate a culture where people are more likely to speak up. It's easy to assume that emotional intelligence is enough. And for many years, it seemed like the ultimate answer to better leadership. But curiosity is what allows emotional intelligence to evolve. It deepens empathy, sharpens listening, expands awareness, and makes feedback more meaningful. It helps leaders move from knowing to learning, from interpreting to exploring, from reacting to understanding. Without curiosity, emotional intelligence is a polished mirror. With curiosity, it becomes a window into possibility. Leaders who combine both, intellectually agile, culturally responsive, and better prepared to lead in the world that continues to change. So I leave with you this quote: curiosity is a form of courage. It asks us to step into the unknown with humility and wonder. By The Unknown. Thank you for tuning in to Snack Leadership. I hope you felt inspiration, motivation, and felt your mindset spark. Snack Leadership is recorded and produced by myself, Ali Camilletti, and music by Shireen Amini.